Okay, now when our horse is solid stopping by the wall and we can stop, and he's stopping on a loose rein, he's backing up and rolling back correctly, we can move on to stage 3, which is the next stage, and that is basically moving away from the fence and start stopping him everywhere. We're gonna keep doing the same things that we did by the fence, but we're just gonna do it out in the middle of the arena. Here again, I think it's a lot easier if you start at the trot. Just because the horse knows how to do it by the fence, it does not mean that he's gonna do it right away out here. He's probably gonna have kind of an idea of what we want him to do, but he's definitely not gonna do it right the first time. So why not make it easier on ourselves and just slow the speed down and we go back at the trot. So we're gonna do the same exact things that we did by the fence, but we're gonna do them everywhere in the arena. We're gonna jog our horse. If he's going straight and he's not leaning anywhere, we're gonna say the word. Whoa. We're gonna back him up. We're gonna roll him back. I don't care which side you roll back. Either you're doing it at the trot or at the lope, I don't care. I usually roll back the opposite way where I feel that they want to lean into. They usually want to lean into somewhere, anywhere, every time, so I usually roll back the opposite way. Whoa. Back him up. Roll him back. Very important, it's always to roll back at least half a turn, just like we did by the fence. I don't want to see you going out quarter of a turn and then leaking out of that rollback. You're just teaching your horse to do it incorrectly. Do it at least half a turn. Whoa. Back him up. Roll him back. Doing it fairly good at the trot, then you move on to the lope. If the horse wants to speed up and he gets fresh, like this one is right now, I'm not gonna say the word, because most likely he's not even gonna listen to me. Maybe steer him around for a couple of minutes until he slows down, and then you can ask him to do it. If his ears are not back with you and he's wanting to run, just steer him around a little bit. When he starts slowing down and he comes back with his attention to you, then you can work on it. If his brain is not with you, he's not gonna learn. Now he feels pretty good right here. Wanting to lean to the left a little bit, but not too bad. Oh. Back him up. If you want him to lean to the left, I'm probably going to roll him back to the right, even if I was on the right lead here. I don't care which way I'm going. I'm always going to roll him back the opposite way or where he wants to go. Let's go do it again. The most important thing that you say whoa when he's at least loping straight for at least a couple strides. You don't want to say whoa when he's leaning. Oh. Back him up. This time he wanted to go to the right a little bit. I'm going to roll him back to the left. I'm going to back him up as long as it takes to get him off my hands. Oh. That time he stopped really good. Just back him up a couple steps and reward him. You can stop, and if he stops good, just stop right there, but I like to back him up just to remind him to get back on his back a little bit. So if you look at it, we're really consistent in what we ask our horse to do. We're doing the same 3 steps, we're just doing it out here. Let's go try it again, just to see what he does. Whenever he does it better one time, you want to stop and reward him. Here again, if you noticed, I didn't walk straight out. Why is that? Because I don't want to confuse him. If I want to stop and back up all the time, when I want to walk forward, I'm going to take at least half a turn and walk out somewhere else. I do not want to stop back up and walk back forward. I would just contradict myself. You can do it on a broker horse that knows exactly what you want. On a young horse, try to keep it really simple for them. Oh. Back him up. Roll him back. Oh. Back him up. Now he's off my hands. Roll him back. I'm not going to roll him back if he's fighting my hands. I'm not going to increase the pressure, but I'm going to stay there until he gets off my hands, and then I'm going to roll him back. Here he's wanting to run a little bit, he leans to this side. I'm not going to ask him to stop. Just keep going around. Make it easier on yourself. Say whoa when that horse is wanting to stop, not when he's wanting to run. Oh, that's exactly what we want right there. We're going to back him up and reward him right here. Very important while you do this is to say whoa only when the horse is straight. At the beginning, that horse is not going to go straight very often. So pick a good time when you say whoa. Like I was showing you here just a second ago, if you're loping down and that horse is really lean to one side or the other, and he's wanting to speed up and he's just not thinking about you, the worst thing you can do is say whoa then, because that horse is not going to be thinking about stopping and it's not going to happen, and then you're going to have to pull on his face and go the other way, and it's just going to be a big confusion. Make sure that you steer around until you feel that horse standing between your hands for at least a couple strides, and then say whoa. That's going to help you a lot more trying to get a good stop. Very important when you start doing this exercise is that horse is very solid at the other stage, stage 2. So make sure you don't move away from that fence too soon. That fence makes those horses feel pretty comfortable while turning into that rollback. So make sure everything is really nice and straight when you do it by the fence, and then you can move off the fence. If that horse doesn't stop at all out here, try to go back maybe to the fence and make sure that that horse does it good by the fence. If he does it really, really good by the fence, you're most likely going to be able to do it out here. But make sure that it's actually very nice by the fence before you move out. Just like for the first 2 stages, it's very, very important that you don't say whoa and pull at the same time during this exercise. The reason why is because same thing as before, you don't want that horse to lean against your hands when you say whoa. It's very, very easy out here when you say whoa and the horse doesn't stop to just start pulling on him, okay? Don't do that. If the horse doesn't stop right away, go into a rollback out here or go against that fence and try to say it by the fence again. But do not start pulling and saying whoa at the same time, trying to get the horse to stop out here in the middle of the arena. It's very, very important that you're consistent in saying whoa and leaving your hands down, then picking them up and back that horse up. Don't mix it all up together. It's also very important to say whoa when the horse wants to stop and not when the horse wants to run. Like I was saying before, his mind needs to be with you when you say whoa, okay? If he's got both of his ears up and he's looking maybe at the gate or the broodmare out in the fence or whatever, you gotta make sure that you don't say whoa at that moment. Keep steering that horse. We've got enough guidance already right now to get him kind of everywhere we want in the arena. So make sure you spend some time doing that before you say whoa. When that horse is thinking about you, he's going to be stopping. If that horse is not thinking about you, he's definitely not going to stop, and you're going to get into a big old fight. Make sure everything that you do it when the horse is thinking about what you're doing. If you've done your homework, whenever you come out here in the middle of the arena, that horse should be thinking about the stops a little bit. But some horses just don't, okay? They feel comfortable doing it against the fence, and then you come out here and they do not think about it at all. So what I usually do, I start rolling them back out here just like I was doing at the fence. Instead of trying to pull on them and back them up, I'm just gonna roll them back out here. I'm gonna show you at the trot. If the horse knows how to do it by the fence, you shouldn't have any problems doing it. This is just a reminder of what we did in stage 1, and we're gonna do it out here in stage 4. Just a little reminder for a little bit, maybe just 5 or 10 minutes until he starts thinking about us again. We're gonna trot, and then say whoa, whoa, doesn't stop. Ask him to go into a rollback and go the other way. Whoa. Whoa. Till that horse starts hunting that whoa, and we back him up and then stop. The backup is not going to teach a horse how to stop. First thing, we want to make sure that that horse knows how to stop on a loose rein, and we're going to teach him that through the rollback. Once the horse learns how to stop, the backup is going to help him shift his weight back and help him stop correctly. But if the horse is not even thinking about the stop, don't go to back him up. Just roll him back like we did by the fence. It is very important that you back that horse up until it backs up straight and off of your hand and then go into that rollback. Just like we did by the fence. In order for that horse to roll back correctly, he's gonna have to go back straight without thinking about that rollback. So don't be scared to say whoa and back him up even 20, 25, 30 feet if you need to before you roll him back. If you don't need to, if the horse is backing up straight, 2 or 3 steps are more than plenty to go and do it. But if you feel that that horse is not backing up straight, take your time and go back and back him up for quite a while. When the horse feels good, then go into that rollback. The last thing you want is that horse anticipating the rollback and start backing up crooked and going to the rollback when the horse is crooked. Some horses, when you start doing this, they get a little bit uptight and they start running. Like I said before, you don't want to start working on the stop if the horse is running. So if you go ahead and do it for 5 or 10 minutes and that horse just doesn't figure it out and he gets hot and starts running, like I said, go back and guide him for a while. You don't need to work on the stops when the horse is hot. That horse is not going to learn to stop if he's hot and wanting to run. So make sure that you go back and just guide him, maybe even for a day or 2 until he's quiet again. Then you can go back and work on the stops. You've got to get his head right before you work on the stops. If not, it's not going to happen. Something that's going to help you during this exercise is keep in mind to count to 1 or 2, just like we did before you pull that horse back. It's very, very easy to go and lope down the arena and say whoa and lean back and pull on that horse at the same time. Make sure you lope in a straight line. You say whoa with your hands down, then you pick your hands up and back him up. Picking your hands up is not going to help the horse stop any deeper. What it's going to do, it's going to shift his weight back and it's going to make him put him in a correct position to roll back. But what you don't want to do is having to go down there, say whoa and pull in order to get that horse to stop. We do not want that horse to stop on our hands. We want him to stop on a loose rein. So remember, say whoa, count to 1, then pick up your hand and then roll him back. Remember doing this exercise that you never ever want to walk the horse forward after you get him off your hands backing up. That's just contradicting yourself, like I said before. So if you're backing this horse up and you're having problems backing him up and you want to just get him off your hands and you stay here and you finally get him off your hands, what is he going to think if we back up and just walk forward again? He's going to go back on your hands and next time you ask him to back up, it's going to be even harder for you. Make sure that even if you don't want to roll back, if you back this horse up and everything feels good and you want to stop, when you want to walk back forward and go somewhere else, walk to the side and then let him walk forward. Do not walk straight out of that backup because it's just going to teach that horse to brace against your hands and just think about going forward while you think about getting back. When I ask him to get back, I want him to think back. I do not want him to think forward. So that is very important. Do not walk forward after you back him up and get him off your hands. Now that we've got our horse stopping when we say whoa everywhere in the arena on a loose rein and he's backing up off of our hands and rolling back correctly, we're ready to move on to stage 4. I call it stage 4, but basically it's the same thing as stage 3, but we got to challenge the horse a little bit more. And I'm going to add a little bit of speed. In order for the horse to stop nicely, he needs to be pushing from behind. And the horse is not going to be pushing from behind if he's loping really slow. He's just going to be dragging himself with the front end. For a young horse that doesn't know how to be collected going slow, the only way for him to start pushing from behind is to pick up a little bit of speed. So what I want to do is challenge this horse a little bit and make it easier for him to go underneath it with his hind end by picking up a little bit of speed. Now I want to make sure this horse is not hot or wanting to run before I do this, because then I'm going to make it even worse. Once the horse is nice and quiet and he's listening to me, then I can pick up a little bit of speed and it's just going to make it easier for him to stop. At this stage also, I'm going to put a little bit of sliders on these horses. This stage can be 2 weeks into the training, or it can be a month into the training, or a month and a half into it. Just depends on the horse. If you've got a big natural stopper, in a couple of weeks you're probably ready to start stopping out here out in the middle of the arena. At this stage, that's when I put 3/4 inch sliders just to help my horses slide a little bit and they're going to get comfortable with it. So I'm going to show you here what I'm going to do. This horse here feels pretty ready just because loping around the arena slow, he's stopping fairly good. I would say once every 6 or 7 times he actually goes and slides behind. But the main thing with him that I feel is that he's loping kind of low on his front end, and when I say whoa, everything he does, he stops, but it goes on his front end. Right now, I don't have enough tools to teach him to pick his back up and stay soft in the face, so the only thing I'm gonna do is just pick up a little bit of speed, and hopefully this horse is gonna learn how to go underneath with his hind end, and that front end is gonna come up a little bit. It's just gonna make it easier for him to learn how to slide. A horse that lopes down on his front end is not gonna learn how to slide very easily. First, we're gonna make sure that this horse is not too fresh and he's not wanting to run off. He's pretty quiet right here. He's leaning left and right a little bit, but I really don't pay too much attention to that until later on. I'm gonna steer him a little bit. His ears needs to come to you. Really pay attention to your horse's ears, especially when they're young. If they got their ears back, or at least one ear back, they're paying attention to you. If they turn and both of their ears go up, just like he's doing right now, they're gonna speed up, and their attention is probably at the gate or something else. Just keep steering until you feel like you've got their attention back. He's coming back right now. I'm gonna pick a straight line and see if I can get him to speed up just a little bit and then say whoa. If he doesn't stop, no big deal. We'll just go back to the basics. Still leaning to the left. He keeps leaning, I'm not gonna ask him to stop, okay? See how he switch leads? It's normal for a 2-year-old. Just gonna keep turning to the right until I feel like he goes straight. There's no point of asking him to stop if he's not straight. Okay, now he's straight, I'm gonna ask him. Oh. Back him up. Roll him back. Lope off again. See, I didn't really run him hard or anything. I'm just basically picking up the speed just a little bit. Just enough for him that he has to try a little bit harder. I'm gonna do it again. Oh, there he goes. Every time he does better, you stop and reward him. From here, we're gonna move on and go faster and faster. This is just my basic program for the stops to start teaching the horse how to stop. Every time I say, whoa, I wanna leave my hands down, then pick him up and back him up. If he listens and everything goes good, we're gonna move on to the next stage and then move on again. The better he stops, the more I'm gonna speed him up just a little bit. I don't wanna stay for too long at the same speed. I'm gonna stay at the same speed long enough for that horse to understand how to do it. Once he gets comfortable with it, that he does it for maybe about a week, we're gonna move on to the next speed. I believe that if you push the horse all the time by little steps, he's gonna know how to do it at a very high speed before he even knows it and before he even got excited about it. But if you stay at the same speed for, let's say, 5 months, and then in 2 months you expect him to speed up very fast, then he's gonna lose his mind and get worried about it. As long as you do it, the little steps at the time, that horse is not gonna have a problem with it. That's why I start doing it early in their 2-year-old year, because I believe that if you spread it out toward about 1.5 years or 2 years of training, it's not gonna be that big of a deal for the horse. But if you do wait and then start doing it as a 2-year-old, that's when you're gonna have a problem, because that horse is gonna get uptight about it. Okay, so remember, while you do these exercises, always remember that you gotta have this horse doing everything comfortable at one speed before you go to the next speed. Also, I want you to remember that you don't have to have the horse going completely straight before you're able to stop. If not, it's gonna take you a few months before you even stop, okay? So make sure that you have the horse straight for at least a couple strides before you say whoa, but you don't have to have the horse going perfectly straight through the whole arena. First, I want to teach that horse to stop. Then later on, we're going to worry about the run down. Don't spend too much time trying to get this horse straight. As long as you can get him straight enough to stop, don't worry about it. Get him broke through the stops, and then you're going to be able to move on and work on everything else. The most important thing that you got to keep in your mind while you teach your horse to stop is whoa always means stop. So be careful not to say whoa and then go back on your word and then just keep loping and then try it again and say whoa again. Whenever I say the word, that horse needs to stop. That's the most important thing. At the beginning, we don't care how he stops. We just care that when we say whoa, he stops. Everywhere in the arena, I don't care if I'm in that corner or up here or by the gate. Whenever I'm gonna say that word, I'm gonna try to teach him to respect that word. That's why you need to be careful on when you say whoa, because you wanna make it easy on you and your horse. And at the beginning, you're gonna say whoa in the right position when it's gonna be easy for him to stop. Don't say whoa if he's running off or if he's right against that fence or whatever. Whenever you don't feel comfortable, do not say whoa, because I want that horse to respect that word. So whenever I say it, I'm gonna make him stop. So make him stop and say whoa whenever you feel comfortable. Okay, next thing we're gonna teach our horse is to be soft in his head and neck. Now we've got our horse that knows how to stop on the word whoa. We've got him guiding around the arena pretty much everywhere we want. We've got him back him up. We gotta start softening him. There is 4 big areas. You can divide your horse's body in more areas, but I think it gets more complicated. I just divided it in basically 4 different areas: the head and neck, the shoulders, the ribs, and the hips. I'm gonna start with the head and neck because I believe it's more simple to soften it, something that's in front of you, that's something that's behind you. Also, I believe that if you can get control of head and neck on the horse, you're gonna get, I would say, at least 75% of the control behind, because I do believe that the hind end of the horse follows the front end. If we can get good control of the front end, we won't have any problem trying to get him to follow with his hind end. So one of the first exercises I'm gonna use to soften up his head and neck is basically just walk in a circle. Like we did at the beginning, I got mostly inside rein. And we're gonna make that circle tighter and tighter by pulling a little bit further with that rein. Now this horse is moving his head because he kind of knows what he's doing. But see how he's wanting to dive in with his shoulders and wanting to almost turn around? That's when you need to use your inside leg. Here again, for everything that we do, we ask him with our hands and we make him do it with our legs. I keep bumping that inside leg. There, now he's standing up until he comes back up where I want him. Then I release. Most likely, when you start doing this and you pull a little bit further than what your horse is used to, that horse is gonna fight it a little bit and pull against it. Keep that same pressure. If the horse wants to go out, you use your outside leg. If the horse wants to go in too far, you use the inside leg until you find that spot where he softens up and he's bent with his head and neck, soft. I'm barely touching him. Look at me, I barely touch him. Now that he's soft, I'm gonna release. Both left and right. Once he gets a little better one way, you go the opposite way. Inside rein. Here, you don't want to pull anything with the outside rein, okay? You're going to have it on his neck just because, remember, we got to keep in mind that we're going to go one-handed at the end. But we're going to do everything with the inside rein. Pull tighter until he bends that neck around. Then release. I want to make sure I can pull that head all the way touching my leg, like right there. If he goes out, I'm going to use this outside leg until he stays in, and then I'm going to release. I want to make sure these 2-year-olds are really, really soft everywhere I go. I want to be able to pull that neck everywhere I go. All the way to my foot. Right there, and then I release. I do it at the walk because I believe you definitely don't want to do it at the trot and lope because it's going to be too hard on the horse. And you don't really want to do it standing still because I think the horse is going to get kind of uptight. Later on, if you want, you can soften him up by standing still, but I believe a walk is a good place to start with. I think you can keep the horse quiet, but you have a little bit of forward motion, which is going to help you keep the horse going. One of the most common mistakes I see people doing trying to do this exercise is pulling too far out to the side with their hand. For that horse to really come back to you and bend his neck, you're going to have to pull your hand back towards your hip again. Keep reminding you that. Look at that hand and see where it's going. If this hand goes forward, that's what the horse is going to do. He's going to drop his shoulders and go forward and go straight out. You want your hand to come back towards your hip, so that the horse has to come back to you when he does his exercise. If he's wanting to go forward and going out, we're going to use our outside leg. But we need to pull back towards our hip until he's soft and then release. You definitely don't want to do this. You're just teaching by doing this to have your horse fall into that turn. When you start doing this exercise, it's also very important that you remember to use your outside leg, okay? While I bend this neck, it's very, very easy to let the horse go straight out, okay? Because once you bend his neck, that horse is not going to feel comfortable going that way and bending his whole body. In order for him to follow that nose, he's going to have to bend his whole body. So what you're going to have to do is use enough outside leg. If you don't use enough outside leg, that horse is going to go straight and you're not going to be able to get all the body parts exactly where you want him. So make sure, as soon as you use that inside rein, you follow with the outside leg and keep that horse's body, just keep bending him to the side. Gonna pull that nose. If you don't use any leg to the outside, he's probably gonna go straight out, which is not what you want, like this. You wanna use the outside leg. There you go. That horse now is following his body. The whole horse is bent to the inside of the circle. That's exactly what you want. Both ways. If you forget to use the outside leg, he's going to go straight out. Okay? Just like he's doing right now. He's not bent. Outside leg. There he goes. Now he's really following that nose. And the whole body is bent to the inside. We're going to reward him and let him go. Like for anything else we teach our horse, it's very, very important to release at the right moment. Make sure that the minute the horse releases, you release at the same time. That way he's going to understand that the minute he's soft, you're going to reward him and he's going to want to be soft for you. If you stay there too long and the horse is soft, pretty quick he's going to start pulling against you because he's like, he didn't release right here, so must not be what he wants me to do. Let's try something else and try to pull again on him. So make sure that if you're pulling on that horse, the minute he gives and he goes wherever you want, like right there, I'm going to release right away. Then you can pick it up. I don't have a problem you picking it up 5, 10, 15 times. The most important thing is that in between you got to release. The most common problem you're going to run into when you start doing this exercise is that when you ask that horse to bend his nose, he's going to give you his ears more than his nose. By that I mean a horse that's walking around and you ask him to tip his nose to the inside of the circle, instead of watching him and seeing the tip of his nose looking to the inside, what you're going to see is the horse bending his whole head and just giving you the tip of his ears, but you won't be able to see his nose because his nose is still stiff and looking to the outside. So it's really, really important to stay there. That's just telling you that he's got a stiff spot there and he doesn't want to do it. The most important thing is to just stay with that inside leg going until you can lift up that inside shoulder and he looks to that leg, and then you release. When he looks to the outside, you don't want to really push too much with the outside leg. If not, he's going to look out even more. Make sure that if he bends his body but not his head, you use more inside leg, okay? Try to lift this inside part of his body up. Get him soft right there until he starts looking at his leg, and then release. It is very, very important to release the minute he pulls that nose up. Something that may happen too when you start doing this exercise is that horse is going to start speeding up while you ask him to bend, just because he is refusing to bend and he's wanting to get out of it. Same thing as when we started guiding, if you remember. So let's make sure that when the horse wants to speed up, you stay with that same pressure until he breaks down to a walk. So make sure we can do it we're gonna ask him to bend to the left. If, for example, that horse starts trotting and trying to find a way out, I'm not gonna pull harder. I'm just gonna stay here. I'm not gonna use my legs, because if not, he's gonna go even faster. I'm gonna stay here till he breaks down at the walk. I'm gonna be very patient and keep that same amount of pressure. As soon as he walks, release. Him trotting or even loping or going fast, it's just telling you that he's not comfortable doing it and he's not wanting to really bend his body, okay? So make sure that you stay there with that same amount of pressure. Let's do it again. If I pull, that horse wants to go straight and wants to go forward, I'm gonna stay there. Stay here. Release. Don't be too afraid to release quick, okay? As soon as he finds that spot that you want him to be in, you release, he's gonna understand even quicker. A tip that might help you performing this exercise even better is make sure that you start on a bigger diameter circle before you go to a small tiny circle. If I've got a stiff spot trying to do this kind of a circle, there is no point for me to try to make a tight small circle, because it's going to be even harder. So make sure that you work on a big circle first, and if that horse is stiff, if he wants to go to the inside, you go with your inside leg. If he wants to go to the outside, you go with the outside leg. As soon as he feels comfortable, you release. And then you work your way to a tighter circle. But like we say, for the speed, do it slower than faster. You better do it in a bigger circle than in a smaller circle. You gotta always remember what's hard for the horse. Is it harder to do in a big circle or a small circle? Small circle. So we gotta start easy first. Let's start easy and then go back to make it harder. Something else that might help you, a lot of lazy horses, they really don't want to do this. When you bend them around and you go really, really tight, they want to stop and not go anywhere. So make sure that by this point, especially if you've got a lazy horse, you've got a pair of spurs on. It always helps, because once they get here, I don't want them to stop and just look at my leg. I want them to keep going. Okay, so you're going to have to use enough leg to keep them going. I don't want to get to this point and start banging on the horse's sides without spurs and not have any response. If I ask him a couple of times, I want him to go. So make sure that if you got to this stage, we should be at least a couple months into training, you should have some spurs on your horse, especially if he's lazy. Because when I ask him to go, I want him to go. And when I ask him to keep following that nose, I want to make sure that he follows that nose. I don't want him to understand that bending too far means stop and just look out to the side with the nose. Make sure that he's always following that nose with his shoulders and the rest of his body. There's also something that's going to help you. Start working on his good side before his bad side. Like we said before, the horse is always softer on one side than the other. He's always going to want to bend his body better on one side than the other. If you come out and you know that he's stiff to the left, don't go and try to bend him as hard as you can to the left, because that horse is probably going to get kind of upset and he's going to start regretting his job. Make sure that you come out and always kind of work on the good side first. If it gets good, then we move on to that bad side. I don't want that horse to connect getting on him and coming in the arena with doing something that's not very comfortable. You do not want that horse to get pissed off at you right off the bat. So go and work on the good side first, and then you can move on to the bad side. We're going to move on now into teaching our horse how to give to a pressure with our hands. By that I mean putting a little bit of face on our horse, basically. I really don't worry about the face too much in the first 6 months of the training of my 2-year-old, but I do need a little bit of control, and I want to start introducing the fact that when I pick up my hands going forward, I want my horse to give to the pressure a little bit. I don't expect him to be very, very soft, but I don't even want him to push on my hands too much. If he pushes too much and I don't have any face on him, it's going to be very, very hard for me to teach him how to move his shoulders and to teach him to turn around and all that. So basically, all I'm trying to get him is that he understands that when I pick my hands up and I've got my legs on him, he needs to give to my hands. The reason why I don't want to stress too much about this and I don't want to put too much face on my horse in the first 6 months is because I think you can get kind of in trouble. By that I mean that if you've got too much face before you get control of the other parts of the body, I think that horse is going to learn how to hide down away from your hands when you ask him to move some other body part. So I really make sure that I have very good control of his whole body before I go to the head. I've seen a lot of horses later on as 3-4-year-olds that learn how to put their head down, but when you go to try to move their body, you don't have a whole lot of control. Those horses have just learned how to put their head down and move away from the pressure, but they haven't learned how to move their body around. So I think it's way more important to control the whole body, head, neck, shoulders, rib cage, and hip, before we really put a whole lot of frame on our horses. No matter what though, we are teaching them to get off of our hands. I think a good gait to start teaching this is the trot. I really don't do it at the walk a whole lot because I don't have enough forward motion, and whenever I pull on my horse's face, he's going to want to stop too much. And also I don't want to do it at the lope because that's going to be too tough for him to understand. So we're going to pick up the jog on a loose rein. And all we're going to do is apply a little bit of pressure with our hands. Now at the same time, we're going to bump with both of our legs. Why do I bump with my legs? It's because I don't want this horse to stop. And we taught him that the pressure means stop and back up. We don't want him to do that. So we're going to put a little bit of pressure, bump with our legs, gives in a little bit, release. I'm not expecting this horse to give in completely. You can do it in a circle and in a straight line. A little bit of pressure, just enough to get contact with him. Legs, as soon as he gives in, I release. Now giving in doesn't necessarily mean putting his head down. Horse can have two reactions from this, either put his head up or down, which is as bad. Either one are equal. I don't like a horse putting his head down and pushing down trying to get off my pressure, and I don't like a horse putting his head up and do it. So be careful not to think that your horse is getting off of your hands just because he's putting his head down. That does not mean anything. Make sure that you pay attention to the feel you've got in your hands. That horse is going to get off only when he really gets off your hands right there, and then you release. If he pushes down on my hands, I am not going to release. So basically, we're using two tools that the horse already knows perfectly. One is pressure from up front, shutting off that gate up front. Second is putting pressure from behind with both of our legs. What is it going to result? We're shoving him up from front, we're pushing him from behind. He's going to have to pick up his back and soften up. Most likely he might want to go sideways because we haven't really stopped him from going sideways. That's okay. I'm going to keep that same pressure until he gets off, and then I'm going to release. Once he does it good at the walk, at the trot, then you can move on at the lope. We're going to do the same exact thing at the lope. Here again, you don't want to do this if the horse is hot and wanting to run. He's not going to do it. He's just going to push against your hands. He's a little fresh right now, so we're going to walk him for a second or two. Lope him for a few circles until he chills out and he comes back to us. Right now he's pretty good. Apply pressure with both of my hands. Enough legs to keep him going. He's being pushy, pushy, pushy. He's putting his head down, but he's pushing on me. I'm going to stay here. Now he's came off, I'm going to release. There is no point of pulling harder on him if he's pushing against us more. If he's pushing, he's telling us that he doesn't want us to pull on him, so he's already feeling enough discomfort. Don't pull any harder, just stay there. So we're going to put pressure. He's pushing down on us. See him dropping his head, but he's just pushing on me. Use my legs to keep him going. He's getting off. I'm going to release. Now we'll do it in a straight line. Pick up our hands. It's pushing down on us. Legs, 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 legs. Gets off, release. If you notice, I'm not jerking on him or bumping on him. I'm just holding him. Oh. The reason why I'm not bumping with my hands and I'm not jerking on him is because I want him to learn how to get off from a steady pressure with my hands. At the end of the day, we're going to have to go around one-handed, and we're going to have to be able to pick your hand up and soften this horse up in the face just with one hand. With one hand, you're not going to be able to jerk one rein or the other. You're just going to be able to put a little bit of pressure equally with both reins. So I want to start teaching him right from the beginning that he needs to learn how to get off from a steady pressure, not from bumping on him. I use bumping later on, but that's more of a punishment when he doesn't get off my hands. Right at this stage, he doesn't know what this pressure means. So there's no point of punishing for doing something that he doesn't know. Right now, we're just in the teaching stage. So we're just going to keep that pressure until he gets away from that pressure, and then we're going to release. 6 months from now or a year from now, if he's supposed to know how to get off that pressure, if he still pushes on our hands, then we're going to punish him and bump him off. But our cue is that steady pressure. The punishment is the bumping. So remember, don't bump at this stage. Just hold them until they get off your hands and then release. Something that you need to keep in mind is that each horse is different, and each horse is going to have a different feel in his mouth. By that I mean that not every horse is going to feel the same when you first start working on their face. Some of them are going to be more pushy and some of them less pushy. But if you do have enough control of their body and you spend your time softening up the head and neck, you're probably going to be okay teaching them to get off your hands. The main thing is that don't expect every horse to be the same. Some have more feel and some less feel. So if one is a little bit more pushy, just spend a little bit more time doing his face. The most important thing is that you're consistent, you teach him to get off your hands. Then how soft he is in the face, it's kind of up to him. Just make sure you're very soft with your hands, and that's all you can do to teach a horse to be as soft as you can. A very common rider mistake that I see people do is that they just pull way too hard when they try to teach a horse to get soft in the face. If you think about it, you're trying to get the horse to be soft in the face, not stiff in the face. So what do? You pull hard. By pulling hard, that horse, that's all he's going to know. He's going to think that every time you want him to be soft in the face, you're going to pull hard on him. So he's never really going to be soft in the face. He's going to learn how to give, but he's going to give just to a hard pressure. If you want that horse at the end to be soft in the face, you're going to have to be soft with your hands. At this point, that young colt still has a lot of natural feel in his face. You don't want to take it away by pulling hard on his face, okay? So just a little bit, enough to where he starts gapping with his mouth or pushing on you. That's telling you that that's plenty of pressure for him to learn how to get off of it. So don't pull too hard when you don't need to. We'll save that for later. If he's doing something bad and we know for sure that he knows how to do it, then we're going to punish him and pull hard on him. But for right now, we don't need to pull hard. Just a little bit of pressure, steady pressure. See how he's trying to push on my hands? Now he found that spot. I didn't pull any harder when he pushed on me. I just stayed there and waited until he came off by himself. Another common rider mistake in this exercise is not to use enough legs. Something that you can kind of keep in your mind is that you need to use enough legs to keep the horse going forward, but not too much legs so that the horse runs through your hands and starts speeding up and going faster. I want that horse, if he's trotting at a certain speed before you ask him for the face, when you ask for that face, you need to apply enough pressure for that horse to keep that same speed. I don't want him to go any slower, I don't want him to go any faster. He needs to stay at that same speed. And that changes from horse to horse. If you've got a horse that's kind of hot, you might not even need to keep your legs on him. You might just need to use your hands. If you have a horse that's really lazy, put some spurs on him and you might have to kick really hard to keep him going. No matter what, just think about that speed. You got to keep that same speed. You don't want to go any slower or any faster. The biggest mistake that you can do during this exercise is if you bump with your hands, okay? At this point, you do not need to bump. If you want to teach this horse how to be soft one-handed, you're going to have to go with a steady pressure. Bumping, we'll save it for later. We'll talk about it later on. But for right now, keep that steady pressure until the horse gives in. And later on, it's going to be very, very easy for that horse to give you his face just with one hand. Like for anything else, make sure you release whenever the horse gets close to doing something that you want. By that, at this point, what are we asking him? We're asking him to be soft in the face. So if at first, if you apply the pressure and that horse puts his head up and he keeps going around, the minute he comes down a little bit, you gotta release the pressure. Even if it's not exactly as good as you wanted it, you gotta release so that he understands when he's doing something better than what he was doing before. So make sure you're consistent with your rewards and punishments, and make sure you reward him whenever he gets close to doing something that you want. If you start doing this exercise and your horse starts chomping on the bit a little bit and maybe opening his mouth, don't be scared about it. It's just telling you that he's not comfortable feeling that pressure in his mouth. Maybe you are applying a little bit too much pressure, but some horses, they just do it even with the smallest pressure. It's just telling you that he's being kind of stiff in the face and he doesn't know yet how to get off your hands. So don't think you're going to have to put a nose bend on him, or you're going to get harder with your hands or bumping on him trying to get him to shut his mouth. Just hold him there, and as soon as he gives, the minute you give back to him, he's going to realize that it's not that big of a deal. Whenever a horse gives completely to your hands and he's soft in the chin, that horse's mouth is going to close. The only time a horse really chews on the bridle or really opens his mouth is when he's stiff and he doesn't want to really give. So concentrate more on the feeling of your hands and concentrate on when the horse is giving completely and when he's not. Don't concentrate on his mouth. That's just a signal that's telling you that he's stiff somewhere. But don't concentrate on that. That's just a result of being stiff. If you get that stiff spot out of him, you're probably going to resolve that problem. If you don't, we're going to worry about it later on. But for right now, don't worry about it. Just work on making him as soft as you can. If you're picking your hands up and the horse keeps going forward and it kind of ignores you like nothing's happening, it's probably telling you that you need a little bit more pressure. I want to make sure that when I pick my hands up, I feel that horse kind of slowing down a little bit and wanting to break down. That's when I use my legs and keep him going forward. If that horse just keeps rolling forward and doesn't even think about you, you got to apply a little bit more pressure. Remember, you got to apply, no matter what, enough pressure for that horse to find discomfort and try to find a way out of it. So make sure that when you apply that pressure with your hands, you feel that horse in your hands and kind of slowing down a little bit. Then you can start using your legs and you can keep him going forward, and he's going to try to find a way out. Another way out that the horse might find when you do this exercise and take off sideways. By that I mean you're going to apply this pressure up front, you're going to apply the pressure from behind, and that horse doesn't really know what to do. So what he's going to do, he can't go up front because he's respecting your hands, can't stop because you're using your legs, so he's going to take off sideways. That's just kind of normal. What I do, I just keep going, and you're in an enclosed arena, so like we said, he's not going to go anywhere. If he wants to go against the wall, that's fine, but I'm going to keep him going and keep using your legs. If he's going off to the right, I'm going to apply more pressure with the right leg. If he goes off to the left, I'm going to apply more pressure with the left leg. The minute it comes in the middle, I release everything. He's got to understand what you want from him. He's not trying to do anything bad, he's just trying to figure out what you want. So don't think that it's something bad if your horse goes outside passing a little bit or trying to go out and trying to get off the pressure. You just have to show him what to do. So keep that pressure on him until he comes back in the middle, and then release. A tip that may help you when you perform this exercise is not to look at your horse's head. If you look at your horse's head and you see that head going down, you might be thinking that he's coming off your hands. Like I said before, trust the feeling in your hands, not so much what you see. So try to look forward and pick up your hands and apply a little bit of pressure. When you feel that pressure that was on before coming off, then you release. Don't look at your horse's head. You might get confused. If you see that head going down, does not mean that the horse is getting off the bridle. Okay, if your horse just doesn't give in into your hands and it seems like you keep going forever and it just doesn't figure out how to soften up in the face, I usually beat him up and work him in the round pen. I think it's very useful. It's going to make it easier on you and your horse, and it's just a simple tool that helps get the job done. I'm going to show you now how to do it because it's very delicate, and it's kind of dangerous if you don't really know how far to beat your horse up and how far to lunge him and how long to lunge him. So what we're going to do is just put a smooth snaffle in the horse's mouth. If you notice, this snaffle, it's up a little bit higher in this mouth. I usually like to keep the snaffle down low to where it doesn't put any wrinkles in the horse's mouth, just because I think that it gives you more feel in your hands. But in this situation, I just put a little bit higher to where it's got a couple creases here on the corner of his mouth, and the reason is because it needs to sit up high, because once you tie the reins behind the saddle, if that tongue of the horse gets on top of the snaffle, that horse is not going to like it, and he might throw his head up and just fight it for a little bit. So make sure that it's up high so that that horse can't slip his tongue from underneath the snaffle to on top of the snaffle. Now once we've got the snaffle and the horse is settled up, all we're going to do is just run at reins behind the seat of the saddle. Once we're back here, let's decide which way we want to work. It doesn't really matter, but usually if I've got a horse that's stiffer to the left than to the right, I'm going to start on the right side, just because I want to make it a little bit easier on the horse. So if we start on the right side and we want to work the horse to the right, we're going to have the horse looking to the right side a little bit, because we always want that horse to look in. So let's start by pulling his head to the right a little bit. Now we're going to pull the left rein. And I want this horse to have enough contact to where he's going to look for a way out, but not too much contact to where he's going to fight it too much. Right now, this is plenty of contact for me. Later on, we might pull a little bit more, but see how he's kind of shaking his head and chewing on the bit? That's telling you that that's already enough. You don't want this horse to look way too far to the side, because if not, if you do that, that horse, it's going to be very hard for him to keep going at the lope and to lope off. You want it far enough to the side, almost down on the shoulder to where he's looking to the inside of the circle, but straight enough to where it's going to be easy for him to lope straight forward. Now once I run my reins in the back of the seat, I'm going to run him, cross him in the back and run him back in front of the saddle and just tie a simple knot right here in front. Okay? See, this horse can still come up a little bit. What you need to do is let your horse get used to it for a minute or two, especially if you feel that your horse wants to raise up and really fight that pressure. You just want to leave him alone. Don't get into him, don't make him go forward, don't do anything until that horse learns how to do what this horse is doing, which is get off the pressure by going down. See, this horse can still raise up his head. He just has enough contact to where he feels uncomfortable if he puts his head up. Once you've got this horse comfortable, what you want to do is try to make him go forward on the right side. You don't have to make him lope right away. As long as he either jogs or walk, that's totally fine. If he wants to lope, that's fine with me. What we're trying to do is to get this horse to realize that whenever he's got his head up, he's going to meet that pressure in the face. Whenever the head goes down, the pressure is going to release. Okay. You see that whenever he puts his head down perpendicular to the ground, that horse has got a slack in the rein, like right there. What you want to do is lunge him for at least, I would say, 5 to 10 minutes each way. Start on the side where the horse feels more comfortable, where he's softer, and then move on to the next side. If your horse keeps fighting the pressure and it doesn't seem like he's getting off of that pressure in his mouth, go back and let him trot for a while and slow it down. Remember, the slower, the easier it is for him. So make sure you can go slower until he figures out how to get off of that pressure, and then go fast again. Whoa. Once you're happy and the horse is getting off the pressure going one way, you want to move on and do it equally on the other side. What we're going to do is undo or not. I'm not going to release the pressure completely. What I'm going to do is pull on the right rein, which at this time is the shorter rein, and go straight to where the horse is holding his head straight, and then pull the left rein just as much as I did the right rein. And this horse now is looking over to the left. Now I put just a little bit more pressure in his mouth, because this horse knows how to get off right now, and he seems like he's handling it pretty good. So I'm gonna expect him to do just a little bit more. Very quietly, don't move too quickly around a horse that's tied down, or he might get scared. He's not gonna be able to see you quite as good when the horse is tied underneath and he's not able to lift his head up. So make sure you move really slowly around him. Then you go behind him and try to get him to go forward. Gonna let him trot for a second. You see, whenever he gives in, he has that slack in the face. And if he wants to lope, that's totally fine with me. This is the end result. I can guarantee you that whenever you start doing it with your colt, his first reaction is to raise his head up and fight the pressure. You need to keep going until he gives in just a little bit, and then you treat him just like if you were on top of him. As soon as he gives in a little bit, you stop, you let him catch his air for a minute or two. Then you start again. You work your way up. Don't try to get your horse too soft too quickly, or it's not gonna happen. You're just gonna start a big fight. Be happy with a little bit. If he gets closer to what you want, you stop, you reward him, and then you start again. If you can't get it done exactly right the first day, to where you're not completely happy, the next day you work him again. Maybe you work him for 3 or 4 days in a row until you get this. Once you have him soft in the face, whoa, you stop. Once your colt start getting soft and he gives into the pressure like this colt is doing, go back and ride him, and I can guarantee you that he's going to be a lot softer than what he was before. Now that we've got our horse nice and soft in the head and neck, we can move on to the shoulders. I wait a little bit longer to work on the shoulders just because it's a little bit harder on the horse. And I want to make sure that he's very, very soft in his neck before I try to move his shoulders around. The exercise that I use to break the horse's shoulders loose, it's very, very simple. Basically, from the beginning to now, we've been teaching the horse that whenever he put a nose to the right, he needs to follow to the right. Well, now we're going to change that. We're still wanting that horse to follow his nose, but in order to get control of his shoulders, I want to start walking some indirect circles, and then I'm going to trot him, and then I'm going to lope him also. Indirect meaning that the horse is going to be looking to the right, but he's going to be walking on a left circle. To start, I'm going to be going to the right, horse looking to the right. What I'm going to do is lift up my right hand and left hand and make him go across his neck. Not in a big tight circle, but just across his neck. Most likely that horse is going to push on our hands, so we're going to start applying some pressure with the outside, which this time is the right leg. Our hands are showing him where we want him. Our leg makes him go. That horse is probably going to be against our hands trying to go to the right. We just keep that same pressure, bump, bump. The minute he steps across, we release. What we want him to understand is that even if he's got his head looking to the right, we can still control his shoulders and make him go over to the left. Leg, leg, leg. The minute he steps across, I'm going to release. It's not going to be this easy probably with most of your horses. When you start it, it's going to be a little bit more complicated. By complicated meaning that the horse is not going to do it right at the beginning. But it is very, very simple, and if you just stay on it and keep that same pressure, that horse is going to understand. He knows by now that when you bump on this leg, he's supposed to go the other way. And he knows that when you keep some pressure, he has to look for a way out. If not, that pressure is going to stay there. So it's going to be very, very simple. Going to walk a left circle. Make sure the horse is nice and soft to the left. Pick up our hand. Left leg. I'm going to wait right here. Now it starts going. Now I release. Pick it up again. The most important thing is that you keep your hands across his neck, because that's where you want those legs to go. Across. Leg, then release. Leg, then release. And then at the trot, Work a circle to trot a circle to the left. He's wanting to lope. There's no point of trying to do it. Okay. I'm gonna wait until he's nice and soft like he is right now. Then I'm gonna pick up my hands, just pushing on my hands, leg. Now release. We're gonna do it to the right. Pick up our hands, go across the neck, right leg. And the more the horse figures it out, the more you can stay in these circles. Until you can do 4 or 5 of them and make them tighter. To make them tighter, I just move my hands across a little bit more outside leg, and then release. Pick it up again, outside leg, then release. So you want to do this first at the walk, then at the trot. At the lope, you know, it's optional if you want to do it or not at this stage. I really spend a lot of time doing it at the trot and the walk, just because at the lope it's really hard on a horse to lope to the left and be looking to the right. At the beginning you're going to kind of confuse him. So I really wait until that horse is pretty broke and maybe do it in the next stage, the second 6 months of the 2-year-old year. There is no point on getting into a fight with the horse. I think if you can get it done really good at the trot, you've got about 90% of that control on the shoulder. So just wait a little bit longer, and then later on we can do it at the lope a little bit. But for right now, I will stay at the walk and trot and get it really, really good and soft at the trot. As for anything else, just remember, do it at a slower speed, then you can move up. I'm going to keep reminding you this because it's very, very important. I'd rather you get bored with it than not understanding it. Make sure you do it at the walk. When he's good at the walk, you move on to the trot. If you want to try it at the trot slow, then you try it at the trot faster. But don't jump from one step to the other too quickly. Make sure you spend the time and take your time and do it right at the slower speed, and then you can pick up the speed. Also, make it a bigger circle and then a tighter circle later on. Make it easier for the horse first, and then make it a little bit harder. Don't jump into making something hard if you're not sure that you can get it done when it's going easy. It's also very important that when you do this, you move across his neck, okay? You don't want to move across the horse's neck and come back towards your hips too much, or come back towards yourself too much. Because you got to show that horse how to do it. So you don't want to come back here when you do it, okay? You got to go across his neck and then use that outside leg. This is the only way we're going to show this horse where we want him. We want him to go out there, so we got to show him with our hands. If you pull back here, you're going to start a pulling match, and that horse is just going to brace against you and probably keep going to the right. You got to show him where you want him with your hands. So make sure you even look at your hands and that they're going in the right position. The key to this exercise is your legs. Your hands are just going to show him your horse where to go, but your legs is what makes it do it. And if you have any problems, you're just going to have to change the pressure with your legs. If you're walking a circle to the right and you want to go over to the left and that horse keeps going to the right, just increase a little bit of pressure with that leg. Don't pull harder. Once that pressure gets hard enough, that horse is going to go out. If he doesn't go out, just stay there and he will. But be careful not to pull harder with your hands, okay? Just keep that pressure with that leg. Your leg is what's going to make that horse move away. That's what's going to make that horse change the direction of the circle and make him go the opposite way. It's not your hands. Your hands just show him where to go. Just like we did when we were softening up our head and neck, that horse is probably going to want to trot when you try to pick him up and go the opposite way. It's normal. It's something that you've got to do, and it's something that it is normal for a horse to do when he feels discomfort. So make sure that when you pick your horse up, if he wants to trot, just stay there. That's why we're in an enclosed arena, remember? Because he doesn't really have anywhere to go. If he wants to keep going straight or wanting to go to the trot all the way to that fence, that's fine with me. I'm just going to stay here, show him where to go. The minute he gets to that fence, it's going to be even easier for him to understand which way to go because he doesn't have anywhere to go but to the side. So we're going to stay here. As soon as he goes over, you're going to release. We've been smart here. Why is that? because we use the fence to teach that horse where to go, okay? It could have gone right, but if you're going to an angle, it's probably gonna go over the way you want. But you gotta be smart about it. You don't wanna be pulling too hard. You don't wanna do it out in the field to where you don't have any control on that horse. You wanna do it out here to where if he wants to speed up and go forward, just point him to a fence and let him stop over there by the fence. As soon as he takes a half a step the directions where you want him, you stop and he's gonna reward. The minute you get to the fence and that horse takes half a step the direction where you wanna go, you release the pressure and that's gonna be his reward and he's gonna figure out where you want pretty quick. Something that I usually teach my horses before I introduce this exercise is to give a little bit from my hands. Basically, when I walk forward, I want this horse to understand that a little bit of pressure on his face means to give. This is going to give me a little bit more control when I try to move him around and he's not going to fight my hands quite as much. So go ahead and loosen up head and neck first and then go and work on his face a little bit and then come back and work on this exercise for his shoulders, and this is going to help you do it a little bit more successfully. Like for anything else that we taught our horse so far, you got to make sure you go by steps. So you got to make sure this horse is nice and soft in the head and neck before you go to the shoulders. If the horse is not soft enough in his head and his neck, he's not going to be able to be soft in his shoulders. So make sure you take your time and soften the horse up nice and good in his neck and then move on to the shoulders. If you skip the steps, this horse you're going to have a lot more problems later on, and you're going to have a horse that's kind of stiff everywhere and he's kind of soft everywhere, but he's not really soft anywhere where you want. So make sure you go by the steps and soften up that first part really good and then move on to the second part. Something that may also help you performing this exercise successfully is to use your leg maybe on his shoulders. By that I mean, if you're walking a circle to the right and you're using your inside leg to get that horse to go the opposite way and it's not happening, maybe tap him with your butt on his shoulder a few times and just not really kick him hard, but just tap him over there until he moves away from your leg and then release. That way you're just really showing your horse what you want to move, what part of the body you want him to move, which is the shoulder. So we're not spurring on the shoulders by any means. We're just tapping him with our leg right up here by his shoulder until he moves away, and then we're going to release. It's just something that might help you. You don't have to do it on every horse, but if you've got a horse that's really stiff and he really doesn't want to move away from your leg, that might help you do it a little bit better. We got to the point now to where it's time to teach our horse to turn around. The turnaround in the first 6 months of training, it's not so much a turnaround, but it's more like getting control of the front end of the horse. I really don't spend that much time teaching a horse to turn around, but I do spend a lot of time having control of this front end. By having control of his front end, I want to make sure that you understand that it's basically, I mean that wherever I put my hands, those shoulders needs to go. I want to make sure that the further I move my hands across his neck, the further he needs to move his shoulders. The reason why I do that is because at the end, I want to make sure that I've got a horse broke enough to where I move my hand with one hand and he's going to move right with my hand. In order to do that, I do that at the beginning. And I teach that horse to do it at the beginning, so it's going to stay with him for the rest of his life, and it's going to actually help me teaching him to do roll back, the lead changes, and everything else too. So what we're going to do, we're going to call it a turnaround, but it's going to be really different from the turnaround later on in his 3-year-old year. This is just basically controlling his shoulders. We're going to walk a circle again, looking to the inside. Inside hand back towards your hip. Outside hand, just a little bit of the neck. This is exactly what we were doing before. If the horse goes in, we use our inside leg. If your horse goes out, outside leg. Once the horse is following his nose and is walking in that circle, what we're going to do is apply enough neck rein or enough pressure with the outside leg for that horse to try to make that circle smaller and smaller. And that's not going to happen right away. When you apply pressure with the outside rein, he's probably going to go against the pressure. That's when we stay there and we wait until he finds the right step. So the first step of a turnaround, it's not really a turnaround, but he's teaching him that when we apply pressure with both hands, he needs to go the same direction where those hands are going. So we're working a circle. The horse is nice and soft. We're going to apply pressure with the outside rein. Keeps going straight, nothing's happening. We're going to stay there. Start tapping him with the outside leg. Tap, 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 tap. Release. I did release. Why? Because he took one step across and he found the right way. Most likely your horse is probably going to go the opposite way first. He's going to go faster first, wake up at the trot, doing everything he can for you to release that pressure. There again, it's very, very important that you keep that pressure consistent, go with the outside leg until he takes a step towards the direction where you want him to go. Now we're going to start again just with the inside rein. Neck rein is just on the neck, no pressure on it. Now we're going to apply pressure. Going straight, tap, tap, made the circle smaller, we're going to go and reward him. The key is to reward as soon as he goes the directions where you want him to go. Both ways. I'm going to do it to the left. As soon as he figures that out just a little bit, we're going to go to the right. Inside hand, a little bit of neck rein. Outside hand, keeps going straight. Outside leg, tap, 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 release. The minute he finds that side and he goes that way you want him to go, you release. He's going to learn from the release, not the pressure. If you stay there with your hands, he's not going to learn that that's what you want. And from there, we're going to go one step further. We're going to try to make that circle smaller and smaller. Outside rein. Now release. One step at a time. Inside hand, outside leg, release. Basically, we're starting to teach him to turn around without him even knowing it. It's basically a tighter circle. Inside hand, outside leg, release. And all we're going to do is just wait longer and longer before we release. You don't want to release too quick, but you don't even want to stay there too long. The minute it takes a quarter of a step more than what he did the time before, that's the time to release. You don't want to wait for a whole step. The minute you feel him staying in there just a little bit longer, that's when you release. Inside hand, outside hand, leg, release. That now, at this point, that circle is getting so tight that this horse is having to stop his hind end and just move his front end. Well, basically, that's the first start of a turnaround. Let's see if we can get one step down to the right the same way. Inside hand, outside leg, tap, 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 release. As soon as he stops and takes that step sideways, you release. And then you stay in longer. One step, two steps, three steps, just like for the backup and anything else. Until you can get 1, 2, 3, 4, release. When you release, go out in the same direction where you are turning. It's going to be easier for that horse to understand. Big circle, smaller, smaller, turn around, big circle, smaller circle, turn, big circle again. I want this horse, when I come out of that turnaround, to keep going the same direction. Outside hand. And pretty quick, you're going to have to just use your hand without even using your leg. Because like this horse here has figured out that when I've got both of my hands over here, he needs to keep up. If not, the leg is going to go against him. And he doesn't like the leg against him, so he's going to keep up just with my hands. The minute he comes against my hands, that's when the leg goes. The leg does not make him turn. My hands show him how to turn. My leg makes him go the way where he wants to go. The leg is basically a tool that we use to make him do it. Our hands show him where we want him. Same thing to the left. Inside hand, soften him up. Outside hand, tap, 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 tap. Release. The more comfortable he is, the more you can stay in it. Look at where my hands are going. Back towards my hip. That horse stays looking in. The reason why I have this horse looking inside that turnaround, especially here at the beginning, is because, and this is very important, I believe that the inside front leg in a turnaround is really connected to that nose. If the nose is looking in, this inside leg is going to step back towards the inside, and it's going to give plenty of room for that outside leg to go over and cross over it. If the nose is looking out, that inside leg is going to step forward, and then that horse is going to have a really hard time stepping over it because he's going to have that one leg in the way. And that's why I teach these horses how to do it from a walk, looking to the inside, and all I'm going to change is just put pressure from the outside, but I'm going to keep that inside looking in with the inside rein. Outside rein, leg, leg, quit using my leg because he's going where I want. Now he doesn't, leg again, now quit using it until he stays in here by himself, and then I release. It might look like a turnaround, but it's just getting control of his shoulders. Whenever both of our hands move to one side, that's where the shoulders need to go. Make him look in, leg. Now he's staying in by himself, we release. You don't want to pull with your hands, okay? Your leg is what makes him turn, not your hands. If you pull on him, he's going to brace against it. That horse needs to turn by himself. The only reason why I've got my hands over here is because I want that horse to always stay in between my hands. If my hands is in the middle, it's the neutral position, the horse stops or goes straight. If my hands are to the side, that's where my horse needs to go. If I pull him back more, he needs to turn. If I release a little bit, he needs to go back out in a circle. He's always going to stay in my hands. Why? Because when we're one-handed and we're going to lope a big circle and you do this, you want that horse to steer to the inside. So we're going to start teaching him that everything has to stay in between our hands. That way he's going to learn really, really quick to stay in between both reins, and when we go with one hand later on as a 3-year-old, it's going to be a lot easier. If you make him do stuff with one hand or the other right now and you use them independently, you'll be able to get it done. But by the time you go with one hand, it's going to be a lot harder for the horse to understand. I think that if you start using both hands at the same time, that horse is going to be really, really easy for him to understand when I go with one hand, because basically it's the same thing. It's just two hands put close together. But it's going to move the same way as the two hands are moving right now. Once I get that horse comfortable turning at that speed, I'm going to get even more control and move my hands even further. This is not just to get a horse to turn fast. It's just to get control of their shoulders. So I'm going to start slow. My hands are right here because it's going slow. Okay, now he's turning pretty good slow. What are we going to do? Move our hands across a little bit more. Leg. When he steps around faster, we release. I'm saying faster, but it's not really the speed. You got to feel it in your hands and underneath your saddle. Because the horse is going faster doesn't mean that he's really soft in his shoulders. He might be going faster, jumping around. What you need to feel is this, the softness in his steps. If you move your hands and he's kind of sticky on your hands, just tap with your outside leg and keep going until you feel him loosening up just one step or two, and then release. That's when he's getting soft in his shoulders. Let's do it again. Start easy, back towards my hip. He doesn't want to lock in, I'm waiting. Okay. Now he's locked in. Move my hands across more. Leg. There, right there. That's where I want him. I release and go back out. That's your reward. Same thing to the right. Start, soft. Move our hands across more. Leg. There, he's picking it up. We can go even more. There. There. Now I'm not doing this because I want to teach these horses to turn around fast, okay? That's very important. I'm just getting control of their shoulders. Then I'm going to back up and go slow again. But for this stage, this is all I'm doing. And I'm not going fast every time. One time I'll just ask him to step around nice and quiet and then go back out in the circle. One time I'm going to ask him a little bit more before I go back out in the circle. I'm going to mix it all up. until I get really, really good control of their shoulders. One thing that I want you to know at the beginning doing this kind of program, by making the horse look to the inside, a lot of times when you start, that horse is going to go on the wrong pivot foot behind. To be honest, I really don't care about it. Why? It's because, to me, a horse, when he's in the right position and he's moving his shoulders and everything is straight, he's going to go with the correct pivot foot. Right now, we're bending him so much to the inside, trying to get control of that inside leg, that it's natural for the horse to pick up that wrong pivot foot. But later on, once we put everything straight and we get more control of him, I can guarantee you he's going to go on the correct pivot foot by himself. So don't worry right now which pivot foot he's going on. If a horse wants to really sit back naturally and he's a big stopper, he's most likely going to go on the wrong pivot foot, because the horses that sit back a lot, they go on the wrong pivot foot. When you pick up speed and you get control and you get him in frame, they're going to go on the correct pivot foot by themselves. So don't stress too much right now if your horse learns how to turn around on the wrong pivot foot. A very common mistake that I see riders do when I try to teach them this program is they go way too quick with their hands. You got to remember that this is just a 2-year-old and he does not know how to stay in between your hands. So you got to give the horse a chance to learn how to stay in between your hands. If you go from this circle, having the horse looking to the inside, to this too quickly, that horse is just going to brace against it and go the opposite way of your hands, okay? So be really, really soft with your hands. Once you got the horse nice and soft to the inside, start slow and give that horse a chance to stay with your hands. If he doesn't, you use your outside leg until he stays there. And then you release. Same thing when you want to pick up a little bit of speed in that turnaround, you really don't want to do it too quickly. Start slow, then increase a little bit of the speed, then increase even more. But don't go from step 1 to step 4 all at the same time. It's also very important when you teach your horse to step around that you first ask with your hands and then go with your outside leg. If you do it at the same time, that horse is not going to understand and he's going to probably trot out or do something bad. Also, you're not giving the horse the cue that we want at the end to use to turn around. The cue at the end, it's going to be just moving our hand. So what we want to do right now is just move our hands. Then if the horse doesn't do it, then we start using your outside leg. Until the horse finds that spot, then you release. Don't pull and spur at the same time. If not, that horse is going to take off at the trot and he's not going to understand. Show him the direction to go and then use your leg to make him go that direction. Don't do it all at the same time. It's also very important how much inside or outside rein pressure you put. Remember, the horse does whatever your hands do. So if you put too much inside pressure without using enough outside, what you're going to get that horse to do is to just bend around to the inside of the turn and not go anywhere, just like he's doing right now. He's doing like a circle, but he's not turning around. So what you want to do is put both hands at the same time. Both hands use the same pressure. The opposite end, if you use too much outside rein, that horse is just going to brace against you and not try to turn around, because you're not showing him. The horse goes the direction where his nose is going. If you put too much outside rein and you pull like this, where is his nose? To the outside. Where is the horse wanting to go? To the outside, right there. So that horse is not going to find the turn and you're going to have to really, really pull to make him turn. Make sure both hands goes at the same time. That nose is looking in, the outside follows, and then you go with your leg. While you do this exercise, make sure you apply enough pressure with the outside leg. If you just use your hands, that horse is eventually going to stop. If you just move your hands at the beginning and just pull on him, this horse is going to stop and you're just stuck over here, okay? So make sure that you keep enough forward motion for that horse to keep going, trying to figure out where you want him to go. So first you move your hands, but then as soon as you move him, use your outside leg and keep him going forward until he finds that step to the side, like right there, and then you can release. But if you don't use enough outside leg, as soon as you pull on that horse, pretty quick that horse is going to stop and he's not going to go anywhere. No matter what you teach your horse, make sure you always have forward motion. That's going to help you out a whole lot. Like anything else we taught our horse so far, it is very, very important to release the minute the horse wants to do what you want. what you want is the horse to turn around. That does not mean that I'm not going to release until the horse turns around. When the first time I ask him to do it, I'm going to release the minute the horse thinks about going the way where I want him to go. If he only thinks about it and he takes a half a step that way, that's enough for me to release. Like right there. Why is that? Because if you keep pulling on him without releasing when he tries to do something for you, he's probably going to pull against you and go the opposite way. Why? Because he hasn't learned yet that that's the release spot. Make sure you keep in your mind what you want, and whenever that horse gets close to doing it, you release him. Next time you're going to expect a little bit more, and the time after even more. But make sure that you release at the right time, which is whenever the horse thinks about doing something right, you got to release right away. Next time we're going to ask for a little bit more. It's very important when you do this exercise that both of your hands go the right direction. Like we say when we are steering our horse around or guiding him, it is very, very important where our hands go. So look at your hands when you do this exercise and make sure that they go back towards your hip. This is the right way to go. Out here, it's the wrong way. Back here, it's the wrong way. Why is that? If you go out to the side too much, that horse is going to keep going forward. Why is that? Because you don't have enough pressure on his face and you're not showing him where you want him. Look at this inside hand. He's out there. His inside leg is going to step forward even more. If you put too much far back, you're going to stop that horse, just like right there. What you want to do is go in between. Go back towards your hip. Remember that where this inside hand goes, that's where that inside leg goes. Back here, because that's where you want him to go. Oh. That horse is going to go where your hands go. So watch your hands and make sure your hands come back here towards your hip every time. Two common problems that you can run into doing this exercise with your horses is that the horse either goes forward too much or goes back too much. This is really, really important where you move your hands and how much leg pressure you put on them. If your horse fights your hands when you ask him to turn, it's telling you that he's thinking about going forward too much. So don't use as much outside leg, which is increasing the forward motion, but just come back a little bit more with your hands. And stay back here until the horse almost stops and takes a half step to the side. Don't try to pull any harder, okay? Just change the direction of where your hands are going. If it's not happening the way you want it, look at your hands and make sure they're going the right direction. Because most likely you're either pulling too much out here or too much back here. You got to go the right direction. So make sure that you look at your hands. So the horse goes either too far out or too far back. Like I said, sometimes the horse steps under. By that I mean that instead of stepping with this, if we're turning to the right, instead of stepping with his left front leg on top and in front of the right leg, he steps underneath and behind it. That's just telling you the horse doesn't have enough forward motion. What are we doing to increase the forward motion? Use more leg. That's probably telling you you're pulling too far back too much and you're not using enough leg. Just like this, right here. You don't want this horse to do this, okay? This is pulling back too much. You gotta come out here more and leg. That horse is gonna step forward. If a horse steps under, it's for two reasons. He's either sucking back too much and not thinking about going forward and you need to use more leg, or he's too straight in that turnaround and he's stepping so far out with that inside front leg that he doesn't have any room to go any further with the outside leg, so it's easier for him to step under. In that occasion, you need to tip his nose to the inside a little bit more and bring that inside leg further back. That nose is connected to the leg. If I pull him more back here, that inside leg is going to come back more. If he's too straight, that leg is going to step forward and then you're not going to give your horse enough room to step over it. Once you teach your horse how to turn around a little bit, it's very common for the horse to get lazy in that turnaround. By getting lazy, I mean that you're going to start that turnaround and he feels like he's stepping around pretty good. And then all of a sudden that horse just quits going. You're there with your hands, you're using your leg a little bit, and that horse just gets kind of slower and slower and slower. What you want to do in the case that horse gets lazy like that, you got to use more outside leg. It's very common to see people pulling more because the horse is not going. Then you get into a pulling match, you pull harder, harder and harder, that horse gets stiffer in the face, gets number in the face, and he doesn't want to turn anymore. Make sure you keep the same amount of pressure with your hands. You just increase the spur with the outside leg. Why is that? Because what we asked him to do at the beginning was to turn, and he did turn. There was no point of putting more pressure with our hands. What he didn't do was keep turning. So to teach him how to keep up with our hands, that's our leg job. So we're gonna keep our leg going until that horse keeps up with our hands, and then we release our leg. Now if that horse gets lazy and doesn't respond to our leg, we're just gonna increase the leg pressure, but we're not gonna pull more. So we're gonna start that turnaround. Getting going where we want. Now he's getting lazy. Use our leg. There, now he keeps up. Now he wants to slow down. Leg. Now he's keeping up. He kept up for about a turn or two. Now we reward him. Make sure that you understand that it's the leg that makes him keep up with our hands. It's not the pulling. If you get to pull too much, you're going to make that horse even number in the face. Your hands just show him where to go. It's also very important that you don't turn for too long. Once that horse starts turning pretty good, don't turn too long, because if not, you're going to cause that problem of the horse not wanting to turn anymore and getting lazy on you. Okay? 1, 2, 3 turns, that's plenty for a 2-year-old. You don't need to be turning 10 or 15 times. If not, of course he's going to get tired and he's not going to want to turn anymore. Then you're going to punish him, you're going to make him go even more. And the next time you ask him, he's going to regret the maneuver and not wanting to do it because he knows he's going to get tired doing it. The key to a good, successful program with your 2-year-old is to release quick enough to where they're going to want to do it the next time. They don't get too tired doing it. Remember that the key to this exercise, like everything else, is to take it one step at a time. If you ask too much at the beginning, your horse is not going to do it. For having a good turnaround, you got to make sure that you ask one step at a time. 1 step the first day, 2 steps the second day, 3 steps the third day. Don't try to rush. Even if the horse does it good, don't rush through it thinking that you're going to get going a little bit quicker. Just take your steps. Do 1 step one day, 2 steps the second day. If he's not comfortable at 2 steps, don't go at 3 steps for another 4 or 5 days. Just take your time until that horse is comfortable doing it. It's very important while you do this exercise that you keep your forward motion, okay? You don't want that horse to stop between the turnaround. The reason why is because that turnaround, it's a small circle. So if you walk that circle and let the horse stop, and then ask him to turn around, it's going to be a lot harder for him. He's not going to connect that turnaround is just a tight circle. So make sure that you use your outside leg and keep that forward motion until he finds that turn, and then you release. But make sure you keep that forward motion. Don't let the horse stop and then turn around. Something that may help you at the beginning if you can't figure it out and the horse can't figure it out and it seems like you're pulling on him and he's not turning around, use again the fence to help you, okay? We taught that horse that by the fence, we taught him to roll back. So he kind of has an idea of turning by that fence. What I'm going to do is just walk by the fence, tip that nose to the inside, apply outside rein, outside leg, and then release. This way we don't have to pull quite as much on the horse to keep him from going forward because we've got the fence right in front of him. So we're just making our life a little bit easier. Point that nose, let him step across and release. Point that nose, outside leg and release. Point that nose, outside leg and release. Then you can come out here and it might be a little bit easier for you because he's already learned how to do it on the fence. So this is just a little tip that might help you when you teach your horse to turn around. Maybe for the first few days do that and then move out to the middle of the arena. I always use that fence at the beginning as a barrier so I don't have to pull quite as much on their face, and it seems to work pretty good.